Welcome to another edition of Throwing Down Heavy Light. My name is Jamal Binding. I'm the chair of the board of Movement Omaha Race Equity, which is an organization that deals with anti-racism issues, advocacy, transparency, and accountability. And we've been around for about 10 years, and we're one of the only organizations that we're aware of in the state that has the word racism in our mission statement, even more so today, looking at what's happening in Trump and the national administration of erasing some of the cultural issues of many of the people of color. Today we have in our studios with us a special guest, Garry Clark. He is the new director of Omaha Inland Port Authority. Garry is originally from Washington, D.C., and he's attended UNO and Dana College in Blair. I know he's also a TED Talk keynote speaker. That is not easy to do because you literally have to memorize a lot of that stuff. He also authored a book about his experiences and so on. His career is in economics and community development, and we invited him to share his background and provide an overview of the Inland Port Authority, observations regarding the challenges faced by many community members in North Omaha. Garry told me he met me years ago when I spoke at Jan Potter's class, Dana College, and he was in the social work class. And I made a presentation with Franklin Thompson later point, where we had an evening event at the college also. But I want to start off, Garry, by saying, can you share a little bit more about yourself to our participants today?
Yeah, sure, Ajmal. I appreciate you allowing me to join you all today. I am, again, originally from Washington, D.C., but I've spent a lot of my professional life in Nebraska and actually cut my teeth in economic development in the rural areas of Nebraska as well as the urban areas. So I was the first economic development director in a place called West Point, Nebraska, Cumming County for about 6 years. I had a dual role as the economic development director and the zoning administrator, which is probably a conflict, but we figured it out somehow, working with the cattle feeders out there. I also did a lot of work as the national president of the National Rural Economic Development Association. And also, before that, I was in Florida as a planning leader, and also in Washington, D.C., I created two North Capitol Main Street organizations and the Newberry Main Street organization before working in Prince George's County, Maryland. Moved my family back to Nebraska about 2010, and in that time, really worked to develop my skills in economic development, housing, workforce, and was the lead for the Greater Fremont Development Council before going to Seattle. So I've done a little bit in every space and really excited to be back in Nebraska doing this work in Omaha.
Garry, provide a succinct overview of the magnitude of the Inland Port Authority and what kinds of empirical outcomes are expected.
Yeah, so first and foremost, our job is to create economic development on a large and short scale basis. That's by creating industry through logistics, transportation, through creating housing opportunities as well, and creating an ecosystem that feeds funds and revenue into the North and East Omaha boundary. Now, our boundary is about 3,000 acres or so. It's about 15,000 households in the boundary currently. And we know that our metrics will be how many jobs have we created in a calendar year? How many recruitment efforts have we developed in a calendar year? How many loans or grants or programs have we procured for the community? And so those are some of the key basic metrics that we'll have, as well as how do we create and attract new leaders in the African American community who bring businesses here or expand businesses here.
Good, good. Now, as a lifelong resident, I have many questions about the development of various projects aimed at North Omaha, improving our community, which is a hope and expectation of urban renewal and increased employment for many people of color and so on, African Americans. What strategic initiatives are in place to promote equity and attract investment in North Omaha, given the local and national challenges of racial equality?
I think that's a great question, Ajmal. Number one, when we talk about the Airport Business Park and the Innovation District, our desire from the board perspective as well as staff perspective is to make sure that any projects that we procure and attract to the community or even expand, that there is a community benefits agreement tied to it. So a percentage of funds can always go into the pot to support the community. Now, that has happened all over the country in places that are similar to North Omaha, but you never hear about that being advertised because some of those are tied to covenants and agreements that are made as people purchase land, property within your boundary. And so that's number one. Number two is as we have residual dollars initially, our goal is to create what we call the impact fund. And so that's going to be housing support as well as entrepreneurship funding. And we don't want it to be loan based solely. We want it to be grant based so that people have access to capital. That's an ongoing program that we think will be a benefit to the community. And a final piece, which is a carbon copy of what we found in the port of KC, is the use of workforce development, using our funds to create stronger workforce development that allow for people to increase the amount of funds that they earn each year. And right now in this boundary, we know that that is the lower end of the Omaha spectrum, and we need to shift that.
Good. Now, based on your research and work in the various cities, what unique challenges are we facing in our community, and how can more residents engage in the process in this new development?
Uh, First and foremost, I think we have the Community Advisory Committee that is made up of community folks who represent the boundary, but also we want to make sure that there are sub committee folks that can be welcome and added to that. So we're working on the development of that space. But quite frankly, we want our offices to be open to anyone in the community and the boundary looking for access to capital, looking for opportunities to expand their business. So we want to have an open door policy, Ajmal. That's our goal. As we expand our office space, as the innovation district is developed and built up, that's open to the community. And we really want to make that a first start, a first step as well for people to come in and say it's an open door policy.
Now, it is reported in the media that you're going to change your location. Does that increase the cost, and what are the roadblocks or impediments?
Yes. So we actually expanded the boundary of the airport business park so that it could focus on a hybrid level of development. Initially, when the airport business park was brought about, it had a 2 mile radius from or boundary from the airport. What we found, though, in the media, as you can research and find, of course, is that a lot of the properties that were initially explored, residents lived there and they were still living there and didn't have expectations to relocate. And so, given that, number one, the Inland Port Authority nor the Airport Business Park have any ability to acquire properties that people don't want to move off of, we shifted the boundary to expand a little bit. Now, for our offices, yes, we are looking to find a space that can, number one, create incubation space. Number two, can allow for us to grow staff to support the community and also have an open door policy.
Now, one of the Moore's key focus is racial equality, challenging racism, and the need to bring more leadership and credible messages to the table. It was reported that this project deals with many whites in East Omaha who are property owners, and African Americans who've heard of this job creation over the years have also questioned some issues of this scheme or issue sometime. How is the interracial engagement progressing between the two separate communities in this situation?
Actually, Aljamal, I started just last week with introduction to the Carver Lake community meeting. They had a community advisory meeting led by an African American city administrator for Carver Lake, which I don't know if many realize that.
Did not know
But
that.
so yes, and so I attended that meeting, and actually Mike Helgerson from MAPA was there as well. A lot of community folks. And so that from a staff standpoint, my job is to get out and bridge those gaps. From a Port Authority standpoint, the CAC is made up of a mix that represents both the north and the east portions of our boundary. However, I don't think that's enough. And so we'll continue to try to create programming efforts and activities that bring people together because I don't want to sound cliche, Ajmal, but we are stronger together. and we're in this together. And I think the more that we can find that common ground, the better it will be for North and East Omaha.
Now, on a personal level, you've authored a book titled Unlikely Viking from DC Projects to the Rural Nebraska, and it's called a memoir. And what is unusual for someone your age to write something like that? What compelled you to write it and outline your potential readers, and also what compelled you to write that book in a sense?
Thank you, Asma. It's a great lead-in question because your first question is tied right into it. So, I grew up in Northeast and Southeast DC in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, and grew up chronically homeless until I got to Nebraska. And actually, during college, my college years, I really didn't even have a formal address in DC, and
Wow.
so a lot of my history and legacy was tied to me coming to a place I'd never been before, sight unseen, first flight ever, and then not all I saw when we were approaching Omaha was cornfields, and I cried, and so I really wanted to tell the spectrum of my journey because Nebraska really did a tremendous thing for me. It created an opportunity that I did not have. A lot of, not to sound cliche, but a lot of my friends did get into drugs, did get killed before they were 19 or 20. And really, I found my oasis of hope in Nebraska. And so I wanted to tell that story from the DC projects to rural Nebraska, that it's a real opportunity in Omaha, in places like Cumming County and West Point and places like that where I found my journey. So the readers are a collective group. So when you mention North and East Omaha, I think of that as a spectrum of my journey as well. That my journey speaks to the folks in East Omaha. My journey speaks to the folks in North Omaha because I know what it's like to grow up in what we call Simple City, Southeast DC. And so, where infrastructure isn't prevalent, where you feel as though a lot of the promises you that have been made to your community have not been kept, and so I live that from my journey. So that book is it's a microcosm of that story.
Right. Now, over the years, I've observed a low literacy rate and poor book reading within skills of African Americans in our community. Again, you can go to the library in different places and so on and report those demographics and see that we do have a challenge in that area. Are you planning to write another book given the scarcity of authors from our community?
Yes, eventually I will. I actually wrote another book after that book with my daughter, who's now a junior in high school, but it's called The Basketball Dad and Me, and it's a children's book. And so we did that book, and it was really cool. And so I'll probably do another book, but it'll be a poetry book. I like spoken word poetry, and I've done that for years. My TEDx talk is all spoken word for 9 minutes, and so I want to bring that because people do ask me about that. And then last but not least, I'm actually using the TED Talk and the book, and working with some people to write a screenplay for that. So
As you mentioned that over the years, I've met a number of African Americans, different income levels, particularly some of the grassroots folks I worked at St. Martin's, who could do a TED Talk. I've heard some powerful speeches I never forgot in community forums. And again, many of these low-income women and people never had an opportunity to get at the university or go to the public schools and talk about some of their experiences. But we got to do a better job with that, Gary, as well as helping our people to read books and write, because well, that's one of the ways we can transform and leave legacies and, as we say, uh, historical issues about what we've done in this city or in this state or in our society. So that's one of the issues I want to work on more is book reading, book discussions. But that I'm going to switch up a little bit. And I know that after serving on many boards, and with diverse personalities in South Omaha, you name it, and so on, many find it challenging to engage with outsiders, particularly those from grassroots communities who are low income or under income, and so on, in these projects. Should this factor take into account the current mayor-appointed board members are the Friends of the System Advisory Community? Basically, I'm saying, how can we include more grassroots in these systems where they oftentimes exclude low-income and people who may be articulate about the struggle, but they don't want to hear it. So how do you bring that to the table with all the challenges we face in our divided communities?
I think we use an entrepreneurial spirit when it comes to the Port Authority and our efforts to engage the community, Ajmal. And that means that we don't try to follow a system as much as we create it. And so if we don't have that presence, we create that presence by welcoming people into the space and creating a new formalized system under the CAC, the Community Advisory Committee. And so there's an opportunity for us to think about making sure that we look at our numbers and track and make sure that they are relevant people who have relevant experiences in the boundary. What we don't want to have is the same carbon copy of industry coming into the community, but not feeling as though industry or the people are representative in that space. And so what really this is about is, can we help existing businesses in North Omaha and East Omaha who have been struggling to get to that next level? Can we help them get to that next level? And can we help the families who cannot afford $300,000 worth of a home and only can afford $130,000 worth of a home? Can we figure out a way to bridge that gap? And then those people, we need those voices for sure. We need the small business owner that can't get a loan to be a part of the CAC. We need the family member who has been renting for years in a dilapidated home to come and be a part of the CAC. We need those stories. So I agree. Our job is to create that space by creating a committee or subcommittee that represents those people.
Gary, as you mentioned, that reminds me back in the day, Greater Omaha Community Action, which is now NCAP, and I know Charles Drew, when I was on their board and as the chair, they had a mandate within their bylaws that they had to include consumers or user of their clinics. And then in the case of GOCA, way back in the day, they had to have so many low-income representative, and we're talking like in the 1970s and so on, way back then and so on when they just started. They started before then, but point is, if you have that voice at the table, it shapes the tone of that environment versus those folks who are fly by night or fly over the community and don't have the interests of those consumers or people there. So, in other words, I think that's a great ideal and also should be lauded in terms of helping us bring our cities and our communities together. But I really like to see more of that as we move forward. Um, one of the questions I'm going to ask you, I noticed I read your minutes online, and so I know they're very succinct, well laid out, and didn't have a lot of verbiage that was useless, we would say. It appears that you're doing a survey. Who is responsible for this, and will there be in-person focus meetings or follow-up with participants? And I say that only because we've been surveyed to death in this community. People do all kinds of stuff. They never come in and they follow up what happened. And when I was at Promise Ship, they were really good at doing a survey, but they weren't also good at going back, showing what the results of the survey, and also showing them how they implement some of those constructive feedback or criticism to make the organization better. So my question basically is asking you, is there a follow-up to what you're doing with this survey? And give me a little bit more about what this survey is about.
Yes, Ajmal, the survey is a requirement of the CAC that's been created. And so we just actually executed and saw the first or the final draft of the survey. And who we used was the University of Nebraska at Omaha's CPAR. Dr. Josie Schaefer is the one who developed it, and we're working with her and her team. The CAC is required to do this on an annual basis and required to share it, or they've decided that they want to share it on the OIPA website. And so what they'll do is share the results. And since we're doing it on an annual basis, we're going to make sure that we take feedback on how to improve it and make sure that people feel as though the questions are the best questions to ask. And so first and foremost, this one is very much about, tell us what you know about us and what you'd like to see in the boundary, what you'd like to experience. So it's really kind of asking what the community actually knows about the Inland Port Authority.
By the way, two points. I'm gonna do an audible here if I can. Where do you meet at, and are your meetings open to the public? Those two things.
Yes, we meet at Metro Community College just up the road off of 30th. And so, yes, it is open to the public. We meet on the first Thursday of each month, and it's at 9 a.m. And our public invitation is, it's a public meeting. Our agenda is posted weeks prior on the OIPA website. And yes, it is open to the public. And we are actually welcome public commentary as well.
Now, I'm aware of, and I may attend. There's an African American, Nebraska African American Commission is meeting in Metro today at 3 o'clock to about 7. I do know that they're meeting, and I
Mm.
also know that they have open to where you can speak for 3 minutes and so on. And my question to you again, those agendas sometimes change and so on, and people may have concerns and issues. Can someone speak at your meeting, or is there an opportunity for the community to engage with members of your advisory as well as your board?
Yes, each item on our agenda allows for public commentary, and that's before any vote. So we really want to make sure that that's possible. But if there is a particular issue or item that the community or someone in the public would like to speak to, they can reach out to our office. They can reach out to Senator McKinney, who is the chair, the president of the board, and vice president is Davio Phillips. We welcome any engagement where people want to address the board. And so that's definitely an opportunity. We are here for the people.
Gary, as a longtime resident of the community, one of the things I've been very adamant about is having strategic plans as well as having a track record in public places such as the web page and so on. And I'm somewhat astonished or amazed at the number of nonprofits that don't have a strategic plan. I'm not going to drop any names today, but again, I've been heard that directly from executive directors as well as sometimes they don't make that available to people. I know that you're mandated by law to do a certain amount of stuff like that, but let's say someone comes in like me who's a novice or who doesn't know a lot about the Inland Port Authority and all the things that you do. Is there a way to learn about that through your webpage or information? And again, some of us have limited cranial capacity, so we don't read and understand as well as other people. But do you have anything where it can be deconstructed where if I want to walk in and learn about you guys, I can do that through your webpage or through interacting with your staff and so on?
Absolutely. And I think that's a great commentary. I think we want to make sure that this is very simplistic, that we don't provide a whole bunch of information. And as you can see, my lights have dimmed, which requires me to stand up and turn on my flash here.
By the way, I got some lamps I can throw out at you. I'm a collector of fountain pens, I'm a collector of lamps, and also I'm a collector of the other little things from the Goodwill, you name it. So if you need a lamp to help you get some light in the building every now and then, just give me a call. I'll loan it to you. I'm not gonna let you keep it, but I like unusual lamps. So
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ajmal. We'll appreciate any offers of lamps to keep our lights on here. So to answer your question, yes, we want people to feel as though this is a welcoming, open office space where they can come and engage. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be here when you show up, but my staff may be here to engage and respond. We will have, we're providing information packets. We also have boundary maps for people. If they are questioning, okay, what's the boundary? What am I in it or am I out of it? We provide that information. Also on our website, we have a current website that was developed early on, Ajamal, but we are probably 2 weeks away from soft launching our new website.
okay.
Same address, but it's more user friendly and we'll have basic did you know information about the Port Authority as well. Last but not least, we're busy on social media. Those of you know I wear bow ties, but I also like to post about bow tie updates and information to the community. And so we'll start to provide that as well. But just basic clips on who we are. So really quickly, how I would describe this for a novice is to say that the Inland Port Authority is what I would call the umbrella
Mm,
of the space.
okay.
Then you have the Innovation District, which is one engine. And that engine, Ajmal, is actually the engine of creativity,
Mm,
right? And then the other engine is the Airport Business Park, which is the engine of production. And so in that space, you have the umbrella and two twin engines, right? Operating for the community and for the people.
right. We're getting down to the last before we open it up to the audience. And then my point is, do you have any comments or anything you want to share before we open it up to the participants to ask you questions or raise comments and so on directly to you?
I would say number one, we're not asking for you all as a community to trust us. We're asking you to hold us accountable for the things that we are required to do, to ask us questions, to create opportunity for engagement. We want to build a relationship with you, and that doesn't start with trust, that starts with action. And so that is our desire, is to take action. Thank you very much.
Well, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to turn it over to our participants to ask direct questions, so on. So I really appreciate that. So yeah, we're just going to go from there. Thank you.
Well, I was curious, so on the south end of it, where
Uh-huh.
is your boundary south?
So the southern portion of it, I wish I could share screen. It would be really nice. Would
And
that?
you know what? I'm only asking because having been in Omaha in Nebraska for many, many years, I just wondered why the shift is away from what was traditionally
Oh,
considered North Omaha. And it seems like now it's
yeah.
Carter Lake and East Omaha. And I was just wondering to the south because I hear people advertising that that's now North Downtown. And so,
So, so Ms. Paul, let me do a better job of describing this for you. So the most southern portion is on one side, the eastern portion is Freedom Park. So, and then from 16th Street, the most southern portion stops off at Willis Avenue. So you have on the western portion, North 31st Street, you have where you take Florence Boulevard all the way up to the North Omaha Power Station,
okay,
and then you take Abbott Drive all the way down until you hit Locust Street,
okay,
and then you that whole space there from 23rd all the way down to Freedom Park Road is within the boundary. Now, the piece that's not in the boundary, that people probably overlook, is just south of Carter Lake. That residential, that whole area is not within the boundary. So it's kind of got a weird U shape.
sure, sure, I understand. Okay, I was just really, really curious about where this all is, and I think I know why, but more importantly, I
Mhm.
just needed to understand that.
So to answer your question as to the why, I this is gonna sound like I'm copping out here, but I wasn't here when it was originally
It's okay, Gary.
outlined,
It's okay.
but it's above my pay grade at that
It,
time.
it, it's that's why I wanted to clarify to you that I've been to DC. I have a son that lives in Springdale, Maryland. I lived in Annapolis. I visited
Oh,
Seattle many, many times, and I find it hard to understand how money can be spent developing the airport area when many people, the
ooh.
majority of the people, will not go there unless they have a plane to catch. And so I find it very interesting that millions are going to be spent developing an area
Can
that
I
will not
answer?
necessarily benefit the African American community.
So I think you just asked a question without asking a question. Ajmal, you mind if I
Oh, go ahead, Brandon.
respond?
Let's
So
go, bro.
I really think that that's something that we really need to help define for people, that the core of the innovation district, airport business park, and the authority is to use logistics. And so, if we really think about industry, logistics, transportation hub, you're going to see activity by the airport. And I will tell you, while the dollars were originally set to just be positioned there, that 2 mile radius was expanded, and so that's why you'll see more activity potentially in what you call the urban core. But beyond that, Ms. Polk, if you think about this, tourism has never been a part of North Omaha, right? Northeast Omaha. But if you go to other areas, Atlanta and what have you, people they have hubs centered around, not immediately close, but pretty close to where? The airport. And so I think there's a huge opportunity here for us to change what you just described.
By the way, I was going to add to that. I've only been in the presence of Justin Waynes maybe 3 times in my life or 4 times, but he was at Creighton, and he made a comment at this presentation or whatever that these trucks go down 30th Street, and when he was alluding to this well before they came to the fruition or whatever, that they were going to do a bypass and avoid going 30th through this whole place. And as I heard them describe it, including Senator Terrell, I was still confused by how they were talking about it. But one of the things he was saying is that there's a way to do things where you go through a different part of town and also create this infrastructure we're talking about that can attract business and so on. Now, again, my hearing shut down a little bit when they said we're going to create jobs for people, because we heard that through the freeway. We hear that all the time. But if you don't have the background or the education or whatever, it's hard to be a blue collar worker in the unions and all that if you don't have the trades and so on. So these are all complex issues that sometimes people throw out as politicians. We don't know how we translate it when it gets down to we still got some great unemployment levels in North Omaha and South Omaha that we need to talk and address.
You're right. The average income is well below other areas in the city. A lot of jobs started to migrate out west. I'm telling you things that you already know. And I do think one benefit for North Omaha and why Senator McKinney, Senator Spivey, even Mayor Ewing and others are supportive of this effort is because we know that technology is going to be the key to the future of workforce. And I think if we invest in the right jobs and the innovation district, building something that isn't only in what they've called a different version for downtown. People said there's a North Downtown now and other terms like that. I think what I would love to see, and I'm only going to be a voice of what the people tell me that we need. I'd love to see us have a version, something that looks like millwork in North Omaha, something that looks like the Ashton Building in North Omaha, something that looks that draws more energy in Northeast Omaha. That people come to Northeast Omaha for a reason to spend money, to get jobs, and do all of these other things in North Omaha. And the only way we can change what's happened over the last 75 years is to do something totally different. And while I say I like the idea of millwork, I know this is going to look totally different for North Omaha. It has to eat, sleep, and breathe the history, right? The jazz history, the advocacy history, the investment history from an entrepreneur perspective. That's our goal. That's our goal, is to make sure that you feel like this is home when we're done with those efforts.
Good. Other questions, other feedback. Folks, this is your opportunity to raise a question. Garry Clark. Little side issue, even though it's not part of our process, but Garry, you spell your name with 2 R's. You heard people do that to you all the time with the 1 R. And the reason I say that because we made that mistake, and then I had a boss or supervisor. His name was Scott Adams, and he had 1 T, and he used to talk about that all the time. Well, this is how my name is, Scott L. Adams, and they still give him 2 T's if he didn't want it. So that's another little trivial thing that jumps out to some of us. We need to get that together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't mind it because there's another Garry Clark that people mistake me for. It's the guitarist, Garry Clark Jr. And so I got a lot of speaking gigs because of him. So I don't complain. You can take the R off if you need to.
Especially give you a speaking engagement, throw some money my way. And they say some dead presidents or some Benjamins. Okay, I hear you.
Yeah, they say, wait a minute, where's the guitar and where's the hat?
Wait.
Garry, I would like to know, of course, because when most people talk about North Omaha, they're only talking about the African American community. Have you had any involvement with Native people? Because we have one of the biggest economic developers in Indian country in the world living just 80 miles up the interstate. His name is Lance Morgan. And he graduated from high school here in Omaha, went to UNL, and then went on to Harvard. And I'm just not sure why people don't reach out to him to see what talent he could bring to the table. If there's any possible possibility that North Omaha will not just be targeting African Americans.
I appreciate that. I was just in a meeting with MAPPA yesterday, and one of the ladies on the call called me out and said, or called us out and said, "Hey, have you directly visited with indigenous folks in Omaha area?" And were you going to jump in? Oh, in the Omaha area. And so I said, if they are representative of property owners, they probably received. So I'm just giving you the honest answer here. If they're property owners, they
Okay.
probably received an invite. If they
Okay.
are from outside the boundary, they're probably on my stakeholder list, but I do not have that name on my stakeholder list. So I'm adding that now.
And
Lance
Donna will be your
Morgan.
connection. Donna will be your
And
connection.
he is the CEO of Ho Chunk Incorporated, and their headquarters is they've got, I'm not going to say their headquarters, but they have an office in Bellevue,
Oh, okay.
right
I
near
appreciate that.
yeah. And so
I have,
I would strongly encourage you to contact and set up a meeting with him.
By
but
the way,
I was, I'm
go ahead and finish
sorry.
there. Go ahead and finish it, and then I got
I
another
was
question.
made aware that there are some tribes that are in the Carter Lake area that own property in that area. And so we're really trying to make sure that we engage everyone. So if anyone on this platform who we haven't met with that feels like we should meet with them, please reach out to us. Make sure that we get a chance to sit down, do coffee, or just come to our little office and engage us. So I appreciate that.
Gary, there's a question in the chat I need to raise with you. It says, with regard to entrepreneurship wing, what types of opportunities are being provided to the youth of North Omaha, especially those under the age of 30? Is your organization in partnership with Omaha Public Schools, in particular the schools in North Omaha?
Yes. So number one, the Innovation District, its goal is to make sure that there is a youth component as well as a young entrepreneur component. Again, the goal is for those folks to be in the Innovation District, learning, creating ideas, and then busting at the seams because of their idea and it's working so well that they need to build space in the airport business park concept. So to answer your question, yes, we're in the middle of a proposal from our consultants, which is HR&A. They will give us a formal plan model to encompass all levels of engagement for entrepreneurship. We realize that we're in the middle of trying to come up with a plan that will be a creative housing campus piece. And we wanted to make sure that there's some youth engagement on an education perspective from MCC. And also we've potentially have an opportunity to work with UNL and UNO in that space. But the high schools, we are still working and making our rounds to make sure that we're engaging them. But until the end of this year, when we have that proposal, I think that's when we'll roll that out to the public early next year, Q1, Q2. And then my job is to make sure that there are some direct meetings to build some programming surrounding that.
Other questions, other comments from participants? A couple of folks I'm expecting to hear something from who always have something to say. By the way,
I was going to say, as we're waiting on that, there was one thing that I overlooked, Ajamal, and with regard to that question, some people are looking at particular industry. 43% of our boundary is in industrial land. Sorry, my light's going off again. Give me a sec. Industrial land. And so with that, I think our goal is to make sure that people realize that also includes robotics. And I really think that people overlook robotics and the future of robotics and what it has to do with our workforce and the shifting of jobs. I think we hear a lot about automation, but we don't think about how to prepare for that. So our initial priority for the Innovation District is, number one, partnering with entities that want to be in the Innovation District. Number two is finding out what that boundary will be. What part of our boundary will be considered the innovation district, and then building facilities and space so that we can have our own facility for people to operate in and collaborate in. So those are our priorities going into it.
I just want a little side note. I'm a collector of fountain pens, the cheap ones. I like buying those Japanese or Chinese cheap fountain pens. Also, like collecting mechanical pencils. But the third thing that is interesting, I just want to throw it out to you. I also like collecting unusual lamps. So I could loan you a few lamps you can bring to your office, and when you have no problem like that, you can plug it in and say, "Oswald donate one of his used Goodwill lamps that he picked up for $5." So again, in the future, if you have a problem with lights and I interview you again, push that little lamp in front of you, bro, and we'll be okay. You ain't got to jump up and run back and forth.
I know there's a new invention called the clapper, and I wish I could clap to do that, but I think it means I just sit too still when I'm
Okay.
talking. That's the
No,
problem.
I know. Matter of fact, one time I was in a church, I forgot to mention it, West Omaha, and I was going down the stairwell, and the lights went out. And if you didn't make noise, I almost tripped because the lights went out. And they had the same thing. The technology almost got them a lawsuit, but since I was working for the church, I couldn't sue them, I don't think. But anyway, that was the other thing. Other questions, other feedback from other people. We got about 10 minutes left or so on the program. Other people. By the way, your office, where is your actual physical location where you work at? Because I think it's unusual. For some reason, I think when I talked to your assistant, Theola Cooper, she mentioned you're next to where that where the Tombstone building was at on 20th and almost Florence Boulevard right
Yeah,
there. So you
this
up in
is
some enclave? Where's that office at?
so it's 4411 Florence Boulevard. It's Unit 1. It's I'll call it a Justin Moore special, where the developer who remodeled that monument business is right next door. It's JF Bloom Company. That was the
Oh,
name of it. Uh-huh.
Okay.
you
And
mean
so
graveyard monuments? No, sir.
yes,
No, is that
yes,
what
you're
you
right.
mean? Yeah, that's what I
Yes,
thought.
it
Yeah,
sounds ominous, right? And
yeah.
morbid, but it's true.
Well, Gary, I'd like to meet with you because I know a little bit about the spoken word. I wrote a poem that's been published called Recognition. But anyway, and I want
Oh,
to give you a copy of my book that I wrote on Black men and women of Nebraska to just give you an insight into people who have made notable contributions since the 1800s to the growth and development of Nebraska. Uh,
that sounds
you might
perfect.
find that
Please,
interesting.
please, thank you. I wrote a piece that was used during the George Floyd time in Omaha. There was, I think you all remember the death and murder of James Scurlock during that time, and had some film producers, friends in Omaha, ask me to write something, and it was titled "What's a Black Life Worth?" And I remember doing it right on off of 24th Street. And yeah, I think the spoken word is important. It's powerful, right? It really is important. But I think Ajamal makes a good point as well. The written word is is maybe even more powerful and really important that we focus on the writers in the community. So I look forward to it. Please bring it to me. I'd love to read it.
By the way, Gary, one of the questions that's on the table, we call it the elephant on the table, and I've heard numbers thrown back and forth in terms of the cost of this total project. I've heard things shift again with some of these allocations of funding. How much money are we talking in terms of millions in terms of what this whole project is valued at, or where is it at today? Because I know some of those things have changed over the last few years.
Yeah, the original funding is $120 million. That is in our coffers and is tied to both projects. So the $90 million fund was from the state statute to create the airport business park, but we serve as the grantors to the grantee, which is OEDC and Burlington Capital. OEDC hired Burlington Capital to help develop this. And the Omaha Chamber is also a collaborative partner in that space. So that's the 90 million. Then there's 30 million that is tied to building out the innovation district. And so I think someone in the chat asked what are our first three priorities. First priority is to build up operations so that we can support this work. Second priority is to execute on Airport Business Park. And third is to execute on the development of the innovation district. That's the original funds. And then there's also some language, Ajmal, that helps us to earn off the interest of those funds. So currently, we have a request out to the state treasurer's office for $11 million of interest money. And in our minutes from our last meeting, the board actually approved an impact fund so that we could use a portion of those interest dollars to create a $1.5 million startup entrepreneurship fund for folks in the boundary, and then 1.5 million rehab and home ownership fund, because we really believe in economic liberation. And so we want to start that phase. And as we build up jobs and creation, we want to make it cyclical to go through that. And we're not using this fund solely as a loan fund, but a grant fund to create capital for folks.
So if I'm hearing you well, Gary, somebody could come into the door off the street and have an ideal, an issue, and ask you for a certain amount of money. You could help them if they're going to show some connection to the project. In other words, you don't have to be part of the old boy, old girl network to get in the door, is what you're saying?
No, this is not, yeah, there's no gatekeeping here. As the programs are built out, as we receive those funds, the goal is to make sure that we are, number one, providing low-hanging fruit for the residents in the boundary. If they have an idea, eventually it'll be the innovation district that they use. But for now, yes, once those funds are in our coffers and the board approves it, that'll be the initiation of, hey, if you have a proposal, come to us. If you have your financials so that we can see where you're at, see where your gap is, make sure that you have some skin in the game on the entrepreneurship side. That's our goal, is to build business. And we're not here just to recruit companies, Ajamal. I know Airport Business Park will do a heavy focus on acquisition of companies and attraction. Our job is to make sure that those that are already here and want to be successful, that we can help them along the way too, because the goal is for them to expand and need more space.
Wow. By the way, we have not raised the question of the issue of employment numbers. And again, when you were talking initially, I asked you some questions and I used the word empirical data and so on. Do you have kind of like a flow chart or projection numbers? If somebody's asking you how many jobs may be created, how many businesses will created. In other words, do you have a wish list, or as we call the magic wand question that Aljamal likes to ask, in terms of, let's say, 5 years from now or whatever the length of the program is?
Right now, I would say I have a PowerPoint that shows what I think the Inland Port Authority should advance in funding, and I think it starts off at maybe in the first 5 years, associating that with I would say it's between 10 and 15 billion dollars of impact at the end of the range. So it starts off first 5 years. And so you see that economic impact growth. I'd love to share that with you all as well. Our job is to show that we created a certain number of jobs each year. We created attraction of business and expansion of businesses, so business retention expansion. And then our job is to show that we have acquired and turned property for housing, and made it easier for developers to do their job in the boundaries. So there's a lot of measurables that we will have on an annual basis, Ajamal. We'll do annual reports, and we'll also have a KPI chart on our website that'll show, okay, how do we measure what's happening in the innovation district? How do we measure what's happening in Airport Business Park? So every time there is a acquisition of a property that goes public, If there is a company or a tenant that moves into a space, we want to make sure that that's viable. So it'll be very transparent, I believe. Things that can be transparent. We don't want to impact any the negotiations or deals. But when it's ready to be public, it'll be a part of our KPIs.
Brother, we're down to the last 2 minutes of the show, but I want to ask you a question that's probably on the table. You alluded to some of these external entities who you're working with in terms of measurements and so on. And again, a lot of nonprofits will do a project and they'll show Facebook pictures and do some, fun and game stuff, but never raw data and so on. Who's the statistician, or is this firm that is overseeing or holding the funds? Are they going to be the ones who will have the empirical data on where, like, let's say an audit, and I've been following Mike the Foley, our state auditor, and he's throwing out some heavy light at a number of agencies. He just came out with the Karen Association today where they've misspent some money. And again, we're talking public funds here. And so Foley doesn't play when he writes his reports. And my question long term is, how do we make sure that we're working with people who know how to do basic math and not do some silly, frivolous stuff that can get us in trouble or get us in the news as I got you stuff? Particularly, some of us in the community of colors, we don't like to have that negativity coming at us when we just have misappropriated public funds.
Yeah, great question. So first and foremost, there's annual reporting required by the airport business park. Actually, there are levels of reporting that they have to give to the board. Actually, the funds that would help to acquire property needs to flow through the Board of Commissioners first.
Okay, gotcha.
They have to have a pro forma that shows what their plan is and formatting is before that triggers any use of funds. The Board of Commissioners also have the ability to say no if the plan doesn't look right, which I think some of that took place early on in the first couple of years or iterations of this. Beyond that, we have auditing efforts internally. We're currently using creative planning as our financing system and team. So we don't have an internal finance team. We have a whole web of support there and already initiated the first audit. And everything that is evaluated that can be public will be public. And so our goal is to not try to hide these systems. And as we build out Ajamal, we will have to build staff to build capacity. Those of you online, you can look at Port KC, which we all visited. And they've been around for 15 years. There is a difference, Ajamal. Port KC, their boundary is the whole city of Kansas City. So that gives you some context.
Yeah.
And another example is Utah and Salt Lake City. They have an Inland Port Authority. Their whole boundary is the state. So we're starting off in an infancy space. But this is the most money and impact that North and East Omaha have seen in many years. And you also have control. You have more control in many years. So you're right to be looking for details and specifics on how we're spending money. And so people are really being meticulous about what the projects are.
By the way, in the last minute, any closing comments before we close out, Gary? We're at the point of ending. Any comments on your part?
First and foremost, this is a really full circle for me to be in your presence, Ajamal. I think a lot of people who go out there and do the work that you've done in the community and beyond and spoken in different places, sometimes we don't really realize the ripples that we make when we give presentations. And I still remember you saying in that meeting at Dana College, if you don't want to talk about the real things, then you don't need to talk at all. I remember you getting loud and at the Dana College campus, and I thought, man, I want to be that impactful, And I also remember that there was passion connected to that. And so, first and foremost, I want to thank you for making ripples, and you and Jan Potter. And secondly, I want to tell the community that we are not asking you to just trust us. We're asking you to hold us accountable. We're asking you to show up, ask questions, engage us, be a part of this process. I don't want to sound cliche, but I'll close with saying we really believe that the power is in the people in the community. And so if you have questions, don't be shy about it. Ask us, come see us, set up a coffee visit, bring us a lamp if we need it. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity and happy to answer questions in the future.
Well, Garry Clark, we appreciate you being on, throwing out some heavy light. And again, we wish you well in this new position you're in the Omaha Inland Port Authority. And hope we get a chance to repeat this conversation because, again, a lot of people need to hear voices, and particularly younger voices, those as we pass the baton on to folks who want to help our community thrive and, of course, become much greater than what it is. So thank you for being here. As we always end a program, may the force be with you. Baroko.